Revealed. The inspiring moment: a millionaire son chose his maid as his mother over socialites. Jason Harrington stood before the mirror, adjusting his tie and reflecting on the absurdity of what he was about to do. The lavish mansion, with its stunning chandeliers and opulent decor, felt like a gilded cage. Outside, the chatter and laughter of high society swirled like a nefarious storm, all clamoring for attention as they prepped for the night's extravagant gala. What lay beyond these walls was a world of artifice, and yet the pressure to conform felt suffocating. Every fiber of his being rebelled against the game his mother, Sylvia, played so effortlessly. She was as cold as the sparkling ice in the crystal flutes people clinked to one another, lost in conversations dripping with superficiality. Jason knew he was expected to glide through the night, palm greasing, nodding dutifully to commendations that rang hollow. But his throat tightened at the thought of it. The words stuck somewhere between cowardice and defiance, a stifling knot as he slipped the letters into his jacket pocket. Memories of Marisol surfaced, her warm hands and soft laughter echoing in his mind. She was the one who had really mothered him, not the polished socialite who'd been too busy spinning tales of grandeur. When he read the letters revealing Marisol sacrificed her own dreams for him, he felt a pang of shame that he hadn't recognized her efforts sooner. His connection with her felt more real than anything in this glitzy world. A dark storm brewed inside him. Is he merely a pawn meant to carry on his mother's legacy? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With each passing second, as Jason walked through the ornate halls toward the gala, his heartbeat quickened. He passed guests adorned in jewels, their laughter ringing through him like a hollow bell. The feeling of detachment solidified. Would he betray Marisol by pretending to embrace this fabricated life? His thoughts raced, spiraling into a tumultuous sea of guilt and responsibility. The very people he was surrounded by had always looked down upon Marisol, dismissing her as nothing more than a servant. Yet, she was the one who taught him humility and hard work, values he valued far more than the gilded status of wealth. The grand entrance. Cameras flashed, creating an almost blinding buzz, the sound buzzing in his ears, amplifying his mounting dread. The moment he was introduced, the kind of hush that cascaded over the crowd hinted that something was about to shift. Should he lay low, play the part, or append everything they thought they knew? The incessant clink of champagne glasses pulsed through him until it echoed in his gut. He felt the weight of every eye on him, the silent expectations mounting. His throat felt tight, and the decision loomed like a storm cloud ready to burst. With a strange sense of resolve piercing through the uncertainty, Jason opened his mouth, aware that whatever came out would rewrite the script of his life. He prepared to unveil the truth that had long been concealed. Would he embrace the authenticity of his life's foundation, or would he once again become merely Jason Harrington, the aloof millionaire's son? The world held its breath, and he was ready to break the silence. Jason's breath caught in his throat as he stepped forward. The eyes of his peers trained on him like a million spotlights, but this was no performance. The weight of the moment pressed against his chest, urging him to claw through the carefully curated image he had worn like a second skin for years. Voices swirled around him. His name slipped into the ether mixed with superficial accolades. "I know who I am," he began, his voice trembling just enough for the crowd to notice. "And I owe much of that to someone many of you look down on." The words ignited a collective gasp, the curiosity morphing into a dangerous silence that rattled through the room. With every syllable, Jason felt a visceral shift within him. It was as if unearthing a buried truth that had long yearned for the light. His mother's face morphed into a grimace of disbelief, eyes narrowing as the guest's smiles faltered. "You think fortune defines who we are, but let me take a moment to share a story." He spoke of Marisol, the warmth of her laughter, the way she cheered him on during his first big presentation, words of encouragement flowing from her like sunshine. He recounted the sacrifices she'd made, the love she'd shown when he himself had acted like a reluctant prince in a glass castle. Each memory stripped away layers crafted by his mother, and built by the expectations of society, revealing the intricate mosaic of a young man who was desperate to understand his own identity in the shadow of wealth. The applause that followed had a strange texture. A mix of shock and admiration danced through the room, and as he spoke, even he began to believe in the vision he painted. As he glanced around, Jason absorbed the expressions that shifted in real time. People who had judged Marisol, a woman they saw as not even worthy of their acknowledgement, now looked at him differently. He was no longer just the millionaire's son but a young man with depth, tossing aside the mantle of privilege for something real. Stirring emotions he had tried to suppress, as the applause finally ebbed into a cautious chatter, Jason felt a tether snap within him. The sense of freedom, a lightness that swept through his core, eclipsed any lingering doubts. It felt exhilarating to shed the stiff armor that wealth had forced upon him. But even as he reveled in the power of his own voice, an inner turmoil brewed. What would his mother do next? He had just severed threads of expectation she so meticulously wove. Would she retaliate, increasing her efforts to reshape him? Or worse, would she ignore this pivotal moment, casting it aside in disdain? The air thickened with anticipated fallout. In that moment, standing at the threshold of his liberation, Jason glanced toward his mother, searching her expression for a hint of the forthcoming storm. The glimmer of rage and disbelief etched across her face sent tendrils of doubt snaking back into his mind. He was stepping into a minefield he had only begun to navigate. With newfound resolve, Jason turned, striding toward the exit, ready to embrace the uncertain path ahead. The moment of truth had veered him down a corridor of unexpected encounters and revelations. What awaited him on the other side? A defining choice loomed, questioning the very foundation of his identity, and Jason knew it was a journey filled with risks and revelations. He stepped out of the mansion, a heartbeat louder than the clamor of society behind him, ready to carve a path of his own. He had begun to unravel the complexities of his real legacy, but he hadn't yet encountered the challenges that awaited his discovery of self-worth. The night, tinged with possibility, had only just begun. Questions surged within him. Who would he become and at what cost? He felt the stirring of something greater awakening inside, propelling him forward into uncharted territory, questioning everything he thought he knew. As he walked into the cool night, the city lights twinkling like stars above him, he wondered if this was just the beginning of a far deeper transformation yet to unravel. What lay ahead? Would he stand firm or be swept back into the world he so desperately sought to escape? Only time would unravel the answers. With the night air brushing against his skin, Jason released a shuddering breath, both exhilarated and terrified by the magnitude of his choice. Each step away from the mansion felt like a mile, separating him from expectations he felt suffocating. He wasn't just moving physically. He was unearthing a path towards authenticity, tentative yet firm, like a child learning to walk again. Jason reached the edge of a nearby park. Shadows of trees loomed, reflecting his inner conflict. He found a bench, taking a seat to gather his thoughts. The laughter and chatter he left behind faded into a dull hum, replaced by the rustling leaves that seemed to whisper secrets. Who was he now in the wake of his declaration? Visions of Marisol flooded back, her unwavering support, her laughter infectiously brightening even his darkest moments. In that stark realization, he felt a powerful urge to understand himself independent of his lineage. Could he disrupt the cycle of wealth and expectation? Or was he merely a pawn in a game he had yet to fully grasp? As he sat there, a stranger walked by, glancing at him with mild curiosity. In that fleeting exchange, Jason sensed another layer of society's judgments forming around him. How many had he passed in his gilded youth, dismissing them as unworthy? Now, with his new identity unraveling in real time, he understood how simplistic and naive he had been. Running his fingers through his hair, he pondered the reality of his mother's response. Would she attempt to reclaim him with guilt or anger? These thoughts clenched at him, a visceral reminder of the conflict still brewing within. The image of her face contorted in disbelief haunted him, igniting a question. Was he prepared for the fallout? He pulled out his phone, considering calling Marisol. He needed her wisdom, her grounding perspective more than ever. But what would he say? Would he share the fear that gnawed at him, or the exhilaration pulsating through his veins? Just as he was about to dial, An unexpected notification appeared, a message from his mother. His heart raced, a mix of dread and anticipation flooding him. After a moment of hesitation, he opened it. "Jason, we need to talk. Don't ignore this." The weight behind those words struck him with the force of a tidal wave, each letter reverberating through his consciousness. This was not the time for avoidance. It demanded confrontation. He felt pulled back toward the combat zone, the mansion where he had glimpsed freedom only to be tethered again to his past. What did talk mean? A lecture? An ultimatum? A plea? He realized that having stood up for Marisol meant he could no longer retreat into silence. The choice hung above him, heavy as a brick yet enticing like a key. Would he cower before the possibility of discord, or would he plant his feet firmly in the ground, ready to defend the life he had begun to envision? Taking a deep breath, Jason made a decision. He needed to face his mother, to confront the very source of his conflict. A storm might brew, but he couldn't allow fear to dictate his life anymore. This was part of his evolution, a step toward self-actualization. With a resolute nod, Jason stood, the bench creaking under his weight, embodying courage. As he walked back toward the mansion, a deep trembling excitement humming in his veins, a new question took shape. Would this conversation redefine his relationship, or would it engulf him back into the dark corner of his insecurities? The mansion loomed in the distance, its lights casting sharp shadows against the walls. He took another deep breath, ready to engage in a battle of wits, emotions, and truths. And with each step forward, he felt the stirrings of a larger confrontation awaiting him, the ultimate test of who he had become, and who he was willing to fight to be. Would he rise to the occasion and choose his path? Or would he falter, crushed under the weight of inherited expectations? Jason approached the mansion with a mixture of determination and dread. The light spilling from the windows seemed less inviting and more foreboding, each glimmer reflecting the conflict brewing within him. He remembered the countless times he had walked these halls, cloaked in the armor of expectation, never questioning the weight of his name. Tonight, however, he felt unburdened, stripped of pretense, and ready to confront the fissures of his identity. He stepped through the door, and the familiar scent of polished wood and aged leather enveloped him like a blanket. The warmth contrasted sharply with the cold prickling of anxiety prickling his skin. In the distance he could hear his mother's voice, sharp, commanding, a force of nature. Clenching his fists, he steadied himself. This was no longer about avoiding conflict, but about embracing the truth of who he had chosen to be. "Jason." Her voice reverberated through the expansive foyer, demanding his attention. He hesitated at the threshold, muscles tensed. "There you are. We need to talk." He nodded, stepping forward, the echo of his shoes a reminder of his resolve. "Yes, we do. I can't believe you would just abandon everything we built." Her eyes narrowed, frustration swirling in the air between them. "You think this is a game?" Jason inhaled deeply, grounding himself in the moment. "It's not a game, Mother. It's my life. I deserve to live it on my own terms." Her expression momentarily flickered, surprise mixing with indignation. "Your terms? You're throwing away your future. What on earth will people say?" "Maybe I don't care about people anymore," he declared, each word igniting a rush of empowerment. He could finally articulate what had been trapped inside him for so long, this hunger to break free from the invisible strings binding him to a life not of his choosing. His mother's posture stiffened, her vulnerability masked by a veneer of disbelief. "You don't mean that. You're just hurt and confused. You'll see how wrong this is." He took a step closer, maintaining eye contact, a silent challenge flickering between them. "I'm not confused. I'm awakening. I've been numb for too long, afraid to make waves. But not anymore. I want to forge my own path. My happiness doesn't have to align with your vision." The air crackled with tension, each word amplifying the stakes of their conversation. Her face contorted into a mask of disappointment, clenching tightly around a deep-seated fear of losing her son. Yes, but also of relinquishing control over the life she believed he should lead. "Jason, you were destined for greatness. Why throw it away for someone who isn't part of our world?" she pressed, desperation creeping into her voice. "Because I'm tired of pretending to be someone I'm not," he snapped, the surge of defiance bolstering his courage. You think I owe it to our family name, but I owe it to myself to find my own greatness, whatever that may look like. Her laugh was hollow, cold, filled with a mix of anger and sorrow. This is reckless and irresponsible. You'll regret this. Maybe I will, but I need to take that risk, Jason replied, his heart pounding not just with fear of rejection, but with a fierce connection to his own truth. The realization that he might encounter regret didn't frighten him as much as the thought of living a lie. I need to understand who I am without your pedestal. For a moment, silence hung thick between them. In that breath of stillness, Jason sensed a shift, as if he were rearranging the pieces of their relationship. Could his mother see beyond herself? Or would she continue insisting the world operate on predetermined paths? Jason, you don't realize the consequences of this choice, she finally whispered, voice trembling. Or perhaps I've simply redefined what consequence means, he countered, standing tall, emboldened by his clarity. With a heavy sigh, she turned slightly away, frustration visibly simmering. But also, was it acceptance? Jason's heart raced with the possibility of a break in her facade. He knew he had just scratched the surface of their struggles. But now, standing on the precipice of truth, he felt a powerful urge to push further. Would authenticity bring them closer or fracture their bond irreparably? The enduring question loomed as Jason prepared for the next stage of this confrontation. What would it take to dismantle the intricate web of expectations that had so long suffocated him? Tell me, he pressed gently, heart hammering, how can we bridge this gap between our lives? Or is it too late? And with that, Jason sensed the shifting tides of his future, yearning to unravel the complexities of a relationship he sought to reshape. Would their discourse lead to reconciliation? Or would old wounds bleed anew? Don't you see? His mother's voice trembled, betraying the facade she fought hard to maintain. This doesn't just affect you. It ripples through our entire world. Jason felt the weight of her words but was no longer tethered by familial expectations. I'm willing to disrupt it, he replied, his voice steady. If that's what it takes to be free. Silence stretched thin between them. He searched her expression for any sign of understanding, but her eyes were clouded with disbelief and lingering fears. What was it going to take for her to see that he was not just the product of their legacy but a person with dreams of his own? Jason, she began, steadiness returning to her tone, you need to think carefully. Navigating life outside this bubble is not just about you embracing freedom. It's also about responsibility and consequence. Is that your way of saying I must cater to your vision of life or succumb to the destiny you've carved out for me? His words dripped with defiance, finding strength in the confrontation. He was learning to articulate his truth, step by step, and with every moment he felt more like himself. Not at all, she replied, her tone shifting ever so slightly. I merely want you to think beyond the moment. These choices define who you are and will be. And how will I know who I am if I stay shackled to a future I never chose? The question reverberated. Jason felt a shift in the air, an almost palpable crack as the walls of communication began to breach. His mother stood at the intersection of disbelief and realization. Was her son now an autonomous individual? Her expression softened, briefly allowing a glimpse of vulnerability amidst her frustration. You're throwing away everything we've built together, she finally admitted, the tremor in her voice exposing years of hidden fear. All the plans, the sacrifices. Jason couldn't help but feel a pang of guilt. I'm not ungrateful for what you've done, Mom, but I need a chance to build for myself no matter how messy it gets. Throughout his life, Jason had regarded his mother's vision as the roadmap to success, but that map had faltered under the pressure of his awakening desires. He had been trapped within the boundaries she created, moving through responsibilities that felt time-worn and shallow. Now he sensed an unfamiliar terrain, an uncharted journey beckoning him to embrace uncertainty. I want to support you, but I can't understand why you'd want to choose this life, she responded, desperation creeping back into her tone. You could have everything. Respect, status, a legacy. Is that what life is to you? He challenged, his voice barely rising above a whisper yet reverberating in the cavernous space. A series of hollow accolades? I want to build a life filled with meaning. I've spent too long chasing shadows. Her expression twitched, and for a moment, he could see flickers of realization crossing her face. Maybe she had underestimated the depth of his desires. Perhaps she was beginning to question her own illusions of success. What would it take for you to understand my path? He asked, hope threading through his voice. What would it take for us to meet in the middle? I don't know. The admission hung between them, thick with unspoken possibilities. You're right, I have controlled everything. But I didn't want that for you. I wanted what I thought was best. The silence that followed was heavy, charged with a delicate tension. For the first time, Jason felt they were dissecting the roots of their shared experience, rather than clashing against each other's surface. He was growing, inspiring the same to manifest in her. Maybe what's best is allowing me to discover that for myself, he proposed gently, a sense of defiance laced with compassion threading through him. As the air shifted and the tension softened, Jason felt a flicker of hope illuminating the space between them. This conversation could be a bridge, yet it also teetered on a precipice. What if they unearth painful truths? Or worse, realizes they're fundamentally incompatible in how they envision their lives? Are you ready to let go? He whispered, knowing this was the invitation she desperately needed, yet fearing her answer could lead to another wall between them. As both stood on this precarious edge, confronting each other amid fear and longing, Jason's heart raced. The stakes had never been higher. Would they step into a future of understanding? Or would the very foundations of their relationship crumble under the weight of old expectations? Let us take this journey together, Jason pleaded, hoping they could find common ground on an increasingly shaky foundation. His mother's response hung in the air, a pivotal moment that could redefine everything they had known. Would it lead to profound evolution, or would it simply reveal they were too far apart to bridge the gap? The air was thick with uncertainty as Jason's invitation lingered, yet the weight of his mother's years of sacrifice and expectations bore down on them. The silence stretched, taut and unyielding. Finally, she inhaled, a deep, shuddering breath that seemed to announce her readiness to engage but still held a tremor of fear. What exactly does that journey look like, Jason? Her words were careful, as if choosing them could alter the very fabric of their relationship. I wish I knew, he confessed, each syllable a step further away from the life he'd always known and yet tethered to the desire to make sense of his future. I want to explore what it means to be truly me. Not just your son, but someone with real ambitions that don't revolve around the life you designed. Her brow furrowed, reflecting the crease between his own thoughts. You think it will be easy? You're stepping into a world where expectations constantly shift, where failure is just as likely as success. Incredulity sparked within Jason's chest as he contemplated the paradox of success she spoke of. Maybe that's part of finding my way, he insisted, his determination crystallizing. Not having those predefined expectations to weigh me down. He felt a flicker of impatience. It dawned on him that this conversation was not just about his choices but also about confronting her idea of love, which had so often been interwoven with control and obligation. This journey then was twofold. Was he ready to carve out his path while also helping her unlearn these patterns? As she hesitated, her vulnerability surfacing amid her protective instincts. I'm not sure how to support you when you refuse the life we envision together. He nodded, absorbing the gravity of her words. Maybe by giving me the trust to make mistakes, to experiment with my life. The words fell from his lips, each laden with purpose. To learn not just from successes but from failures too. Suddenly, the thought struck him. What if he could redefine success itself? Rather than societal status, wouldn't happiness, fulfillment, and autonomy be the true measures? It's not about keeping up appearances anymore. I want real experiences even if they come with risks. That's how I'll learn. His mother's gaze softened, her facade beginning to crack. And if you fail? The question was one she had likely rehearsed countless times. I'll get up, Jason replied, the quiet strength in his voice taking root. And if you let me, I hope to grow and evolve with your support, rather than under the weight of your expectations. A flicker of conflict crossed her features, revealing a tempest of doubt. You're asking me to trust you, to step back and allow the unknown to unfold. He nodded, his heart pounding, aware of the stakes. Yes, I am. But trust isn't given easily. It's earned. We can navigate this together. Sweeping her eyes over the room as if weighing his words against the walls of their shared history, she seemed to consider the possibility of this new dynamic one, based on mutual respect, rather than hidden agendas. Perhaps I've held on too tightly, she admitted softly, a vulnerability woven into her tone. Jason felt a rush of hope igniting within him. "And I'm ready to let go of the constraints you've placed on me." Their conversations had swiftly become a cauldron of emotions: fear, hope, anger, and love swirling together, forming something new. He sensed they were on the brink of an unprecedented revelation, the birth of something unforeseen in their relationship. Yet, the quiet lingered as he awaited her response, an unvoiced question weighing heavily in the air. Could she truly step back and embrace the unknown? The prospect felt luminous and dangerous. "Are you ready to believe in me?" he finally asked, the vulnerability between them now palpable. For Jason, failure felt imminent, yet this was a step he needed to take. The true journey was not just about reaffirming his identity, it was also about creating a challenging new bond with his mother, a bond forged in trust and understanding. But as he steadied himself for her answer, a deep-seated fear surfaced. What if she couldn't take that leap? What if she chose to cling to what was comfortable rather than embrace the messiness of the unknown? In that defining silence, life seemed to hang in the balance, and Jason realized that this moment could shift the course of their lives irrevocably. Would they find a way to walk together down this winding path? Or would revert to the well-worn roads shaped by expectations? The stakes had never been higher, and as he braced for her response, Jason understood that he might need to confront all his fears head-on. Would their interactions be defined by acceptance, or would they spiral back into old patterns, cementing the truth of their separate desires? The heaviness of the air gradually shifted, infused with a tentative hope as his mother considered his words. Jason held his breath, his heart pounding not just from anticipation but from a realization. The conversation had transformed. It echoed the foundation of a new journey, a redefining of both their identities. "Jason," she finally spoke, breaking the stillness, "I need time to understand this." Each word was deliberate, the weight of her acceptance sending a ripple of exhilaration and anxiety through him. "That's all I ask," he replied, a surge of determination coursing through him. This small window of understanding felt like a leap towards the abyss, but he was willing to trust its vastness. The next few days split like a relentless tide, part excitement, part trepidation. His mother's tentative acceptance rooted itself in his mind, propelling him into the framework of his new life. Jason felt an urgency to explore beyond the confines of expectations, to lean into the unknown that awaited him. After several sleepless nights of contemplation, he decided to take his first action step and enroll in a series of art classes. Art had always been a passion lurking at the edges of his life, overshadowed by the demands of success, set against the polished backdrop of expectations. He envisioned the canvas serving as a new realm of autonomy, where he could express himself without judgment, cultivating a side of him that had lain dormant. That first day in class was electric. The moment he walked through the door, a sea of faces greeted him, a vivid blend of personalities, each tangled in their own artistic aspirations. He felt like an imposter, the weight of his upbringing colliding with the youthful energy before him. But then he took a deep breath, igniting the slow, deliberate motion of inspiration within. The instructor, a seasoned artist named Claire, encouraged the students to detach from perfectionism. "Art mirrors life," she declared as she demonstrated spontaneous brushstrokes. "We must embrace the messiness inherent in both." His hand trembled as he grasped the brush, a tension sparked by the desire to prove himself. With each stroke across the canvas, Jason confronted not only the uncertainty of technique, but the deeper emotions nestled within him. As vibrant colors collided and merged, he began to seek connection not only with the canvas but with himself. In the subsequent classes, Jason observed other students openly sharing their personal journeys through art. Some poured their fears onto the canvas, others captured moments of beauty. A new seed of realization sprouted in him. Vulnerability bore extraordinary strength. "I'm afraid of what my parents will think if I pursue this," confessed one classmate, her voice trembling. The very vulnerability Jason had confronted with his own mother resounded throughout the room, amplifying the collective tension. They were all grappling with expectations, and it ignited a fiery resolve within him. How could he hold on to his desires and not let fear dictate his path? With each project, Jason discovered an innate sense of creativity that he never knew he possessed, a hidden competence that became clearer with every canvas he embraced. He began figuring out whirls and swirls of color, reflecting emotions he kept buried for too long. Confidence, previously foreign to him, began to flourish. As he soaked in the healing impact of art, he felt a need to share this new journey with his mother, not only as an explanation for his actions, but as a way to bridge the gap between them. He wanted to show her that success could bloom in unexpected avenues, that it didn't have to be constructed on the scaffolding of control. Yet, a lingering fear haunted him. What if an expression of vulnerability terrified her? Would revealing this evolving version of himself push them apart instead of drawing them closer? Jason jolted awake one night, a penetrating thought striking him. The urge to carve his own identity came with the responsibility to embrace all aspects of who he was. Could he present this authentic self to his mother without losing her in the process? The very anticipation of their next conversation wrapped around him like a tightening noose, an uncertain reminder that the journey towards authenticity was rife with risks. As he stared at canvas after canvas, a bubbling determination began to manifest in his throat. He felt ready to unravel yet another layer of himself. Would this journey lead his mother to embrace the beauty and vulnerability? Or would it cement her fears and drag them both back into the shadows of expectations? The tension loomed heavy, the canvas of their relationship still waiting for that next transformative brush stroke. Would that moment come when he put his heart before her? Jason found himself increasingly consumed by his newfound creativity. Each class ignited a fire in him. He was no longer just attempting to prove his worth to his mother or the world. Art transformed into an exploration of his identity and desires. His canvases pulsated with life, mirroring the emotional storms he had weathered over the years. On a particularly rainy afternoon, he wandered into the coffee shop where he often found refuge, seeking inspiration in the quiet murmur of conversation around him. He fiddled with his sketchbook, flipping through pages filled with abstract shapes and fragmented thoughts, a reflection of his chaotic inner landscape. The sight of a couple animatedly discussing their dreams triggered an unexpected wave of envy. Their laughter echoed in his ears, a stark contrast to the silence that sometimes hung in his own home. Self-pity surged within him. He was still reeling from the potential reality that his relationship with his mother might shift irreparably. "Isn't it beautiful?" A voice suddenly intruded on his thoughts. Startled, he looked up to find an older woman seated at the next table, her gaze drawn to his sketches. "You've captured something profound. Feels raw but honest." His surprise morphed into curiosity as they struck up a conversation. Her name was Lila, and she turned out to be an artist herself. Their conversation quickly deepened, revealing shared secrets tied to the brush. Lila had faced familial pressures too, having once abandoned her promising career in finance to pursue painting. The courage to embrace her passion despite societal expectations struck a chord within him. "Do you ever regret your choice?" Jason questioned, an uncomfortable lump forming in his throat. "Every day," Lila replied candidly. "But regret doesn't overrule my love for what I do now. It becomes a constant reminder of why I had to choose this path." Her words spiraled through him, forcing him to confront his own fears once more. Could he live with the weight of his decisions, knowing that pursuing art might alienate his mother or even his peers? Inspired, he resolved to paint the following day's class project with sensitivity and rawness, envisioning it as a leverage point in his upcoming conversation with his mother. He intended to convey his journey, the fear, the hope, and the ultimate drive towards authenticity, believing that vulnerability could bridge the bifurcation between them. Fast forward to the day of the exhibition where students would reveal their works. Anxiety blended with anticipation as he set up his canvas. The vibrancy of color clashed with dark swirls, symbolizing the turbulent feelings he battled. He painted under the dim lights, choking back a growing dread. What if she couldn't accept this evolving Jason? As he unveiled his piece to the class, he met their collective gazes, their quiet admiration both alarming and exhilarating. But it was the thought of his mother that kept him tethered. This was not just a painting. It was his attempt to bleed onto canvas, to truly express himself to someone who mattered most. Once the exhibition concluded, he resolved to invite his mother to see his work the next week. It would be a moment saturated with revelations about who he was beyond the labels he had worn to please others. The tension between excitement and fear boiled within him as he pictured her expression. Yet, the doubt curled around him. Would he have the courage to speak the truth behind the strokes, the longing behind every color? And more pressing, how would she react? The juxtaposition of his achievements against the weight of uncertainty lingered like unspoken words. As he drove home, a new thought prickled at the back of his mind. Perhaps in fully embracing his vulnerability, he might not only reveal himself to his mother, but also invite her to become a part of his journey. Unpredictable doors were opening, yet beyond them lay an uncharted territory. Would taking this leap lead to liberation or despair? Jason knew he stood at the precipice of a pivotal moment. His heart raced from the thought of stepping closer to the truth. The real challenge was still to come. He had to summon the resolve to face his mother, but would he ultimately unravel more than just his canvas? The following week hung heavy with expectation. Jason felt the weight of every minute ticking away, each one digging deeper into his chest like a stone lodged among the veins of his heart. The talk with his mother loomed over him like a thundercloud, heavy and dark with uncertainty. Would he be able to convey the tumult beneath the strokes of his brush? Every evening he spent polishing his speech, rehearsing in front of the mirror, his hands trembling with anxiety as he practiced the words that would unveil him to her. Yet each iteration felt inadequate, lacking the rawness he wished to express. He wrestled with the fear that flooded through him. What if she didn't understand? What if she dismissed his journey as a mere phase, an adolescent folly? As Saturday approached, Jason set aside a few quiet moments in his chaotic week of preparations. He visited his studio, a small sun-drenched room that stood in sharp contrast to the uncertainty consuming him. Paint tubes glimmered, waiting like soldiers eager for their orders, while the scent of turpentine enveloped him, grounding him. He turned to his current canvas, a symphony of vibrant hues and ominous shadows. This was not just an assignment but a message both for his mother and himself. Emboldened, he pried open the metaphoric door, standing in front of his latest endeavor. In that moment he confronted the brushes as if they might whisper their secret potential, igniting within him the clarity he desperately sought. For years, he had buried his voice beneath performas and expectations. Now through art he could resurrect it. The colors rolled beneath his fingertips, pushing aside his fears and doubts like tides receding from the shore. The day of the meeting arrived. Sunshine streamed through the window, illuminating his work. He took a deep breath, a mix of hope and dread swirling within him. Would she see the child who sought her approval or the artist forging his own path? Jason drove to his mother's house, his heart thumping erratically in the silence of the car. He rehearsed his words, grappling with the gravity of the moment. Each approach made him question his readiness, the vulnerability embedded within those unspoken revelations. When he finally knocked at her door, the thudding felt surreal, disconnected from the chaotic sea within him. The moment she opened the door, her face lit with surprise quickly morphed into concern upon seeing his expression. "Jason, what's wrong?" He forced a smile, but it trembled on his lips. "Can I show you something?" The walk to the studio seemed endless. Stepping inside the haven he had carved for himself, he felt the rumble of hesitation rise once more. He placed the canvas in front of her, his palms clammy, breath shallow. "I've been painting and I want you to see what it means to me." Her gaze settled on the chaotic beauty sprawled across the canvas. Silence enveloped them, thick and expectant. He observed the myriad of emotions playing across her features. Confusion, curiosity, then a flash of recognition. As moments stretched, he decided to lay bare more than just the painting. He shared fragments of his journey, his struggles, the decisions that had brought him to this point, and the search for a space where he belonged. Yet doubt tugged at the edges of his resolve. Would she draw back? Would the woman who had sculpted his life from ambition and societal expectation acknowledge this flawed, vulnerable side of him? When she turned to face him, her eyes glistened with unshed tears. "Jason, I didn't realize," but before she could finish, time seemed to halt, and the air thickened with the impending truth yet to be unveiled. He felt the weight of their shared lineage pressing down on his shoulders, a legacy steeped in expectations and definitions that might soon shatter. "Mom," he interjected, uncertain but steady, "I need you to understand this isn't just my journey, this is us. Can we find a way to embrace each other in this?" As he sought answers, the ground shifted beneath him. In her hesitation lay promise and peril, and Jason's future now hinged on whether she could step forward or remain anchored in the past. What would come after? When the canvas was drawn and their masks laid bare, The vulnerability held together by paint and silence hung precariously in the air, awaiting the inevitable unraveling. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow over the city, Jason felt a surreal calm wash over him. His confrontation with his mother had begun to unfold a transformation deeper than any stroke of paint he had created. Instead of retreating to the comfort of expectation, he had bravely chosen to reveal his burgeoning identity, and in that moment, he realized he was not simply seeking his mother's approval, but embracing the authenticity of his life. Standing side by side with his mother in the studio, Jason could sense the tension in the air giving way to something profound. The barriers of expectation that had long defined their relationship were trembling, and he felt the stirring of hope. They were no longer simply mother and son caught in a cycle of control and rebellion. They were two individuals searching for connection amid the uncharted depths of vulnerability. "Jason," his mother began, her voice quivering but resolute. "I see you, truly see you, but this journey, it's not just about me," he interrupted gently, mustering the courage to meet her gaze. "It's about us and what we can become together. We can redefine our relationship." The silence that followed felt rich with unspoken possibilities, new territories waiting to be explored. Jason observed his mother grappling with her emotions, the tight grip of her past loosening inch by inch. Each breath she took resonated in him, whispering the promise of a new bond forged within authenticity, rather than obligation. "I've spent too long deciding what is best for you," she admitted, her facade crumbling, the truth seeping into her voice. "I thought I could protect you by crafting every detail of your future. But in doing so, I almost lost you." "Yes, and I was lost," he replied, breathing in the gravity of her admission. "But I'm finding my way now, and I want you to be a part of this evolution." Jason felt a rush of relief wash over them, as if the weight of years spent in conflict had begun to disintegrate. For the first time, he was carving his path not out of resistance but out of mutual understanding. As they stood in the flickering light, he finally understood this wasn't merely about individual journeys. It was about the power of relational growth, a bridge built from shared experiences and the willingness to acknowledge vulnerabilities. The act of painting had become a metaphor for unearthing buried truths, and he was finally ready to paint both their futures. Days turned into weeks as they slowly crafted a new dynamic, one where conversations flourished, and the need for control gave way to deeper dialogue. Jason continued to paint while inviting his mother into his world. He started sharing not just the artworks, but the emotions painted within each piece. With each canvas unveiled, tension transformed into a sense of connection, as she began to attend his classes and learn about the colors that composed his life. One evening, under the soft amber light of the studio, they finally reached a pivotal moment when Jason gifted her a painting. It captured the journey they had traversed together, a riot of color intertwined with shadows, symbolizing the chaos and beauty in reconciliation. "This is us," he said softly, his heart swelling. "Each stroke reflects our fears, our struggles, and most importantly, our bond." Tears gleamed in his mother's eyes as she understood the depth of his sentiment. "I never realized the shadows could complement the light," she said, her voice tremulous but full of warmth. "Thank you for guiding me to see beyond the gilded cage." In that exchange, a profound transformation took root. Jason found within himself a solid confidence, established not only through his own artistic endeavors but through illuminating his relationship with his mother. The final revelation came when he stood at his first art exhibit, now not just as a son seeking approval but as a recognized artist standing proudly on his own merit. The gallery was filled with guests, each captivated by the story woven into his work. His mother stood beside him, her presence no longer based on authority but on shared appreciation. She was proud, a champion of his narrative, and he could feel the authenticity in their bond pulsing beneath the gallery lights. As this chapter concluded, Jason felt fulfilled and empowered, ready to embrace his future, a blend of his past and the present woven into a tapestry of perseverance. He had conquered the fear shackling him to societal expectations, choosing authenticity over approval, validating his path beyond the luxurious expectations of wealth. Standing in the gallery, a true sense of his identity emerged. He had broken free and enriched not just his life but also rekindled a beautiful, evolving relationship with his mother. This is the moment to show your support. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. It makes a difference. Comment below your reactions and theories about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to share. True fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.